In 2014, voters approved more than $139 million in general obligation bonds to finance unmet needs throughout the city. Most of those projects are underway, and some are nearing completion. Today on the East Ward Update, I'm joined by Assistant City Manager Ben Rao to discuss the projects in the East Ward. Ben, thanks for joining us today. As mentioned, we have $139 million that voters went to the polls and voted for, and we've been seeing a lot of construction work, a lot of work going on, not just in the East Ward, but throughout the city as a whole. But want to talk just a little bit about the projects that are happening in the East Ward, where things are with those, and then what people can expect moving forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Councilmember Montgomery. So in the East Ward, there are about a little over 40 projects that are authorized as part of this bond referendum, and also part of some additional limited obligation bonds that the Mayor and the City Council approved. Of those 40-plus projects, over half of those projects are complete. A lot of those projects are street resurfacing segments. A big part of the bond referendum was over $15 million for street resurfacing. We know that our streets have taken a beating over the years with bad weather, that type of thing, so a large part of the investment is in street resurfacing. So a good portion of those projects are in street resurfacing, but there are a number of recreation projects that are underway. We are nearing completion of the Sedge Garden Gymnasium, so making progress on all fronts.
And there were some that were not a part of the actual voter-approved bonds. So in the East Ward, we have one project in particular, the Union Station project, that came along during the same time as we were approving the bonds. But tell a little bit about how that project is financed and how that's different from other bond projects.
Sure. So the city issued what are called limited obligation bonds to finance the renovation of the Union Station project. Those limited obligation bonds is basically like a mortgage. Mm-hmm. So you use the asset that you're improving basically as collateral to pay off those bonds. We also issued limited obligation bonds to do the major renovation to the Benton Convention Center. Here again, the same concept, that we're actually pledging the convention center as collateral to pay back those bonds. So there shouldn't be any real risk, as far as our ability to repay, because we're pledging the asset that we're improving. So in addition to Union Station in the East Ward, we also have completed the renovation of the Lowry Street facility. That is basically an annex of our city yard facility, our sanitation department, our engineering field office, our employee training, employee health operations are all located there now, but we really felt like that was a needed investment, particularly I think for sanitation, to give them some new facilities to operate out of. So that is also a project that we did finance with limited obligation bonds as well. It all kind of tied into what was happening with the Salem Creek Connector project, needing to relocate some of our facilities to a new location.
Right. And so we have Union Station project, we have the Lowry Street project, we have lots of work happening in Parks and Rec. We've had sidewalk projects going on, street resurfacing. One of the things that council and staff has done a great job of moving forward with was very intentional in wanting to make sure that the public is seeing their dollars work for them, and is not dragged out over a long course of time, but as voters have approved these dollars, that within our capacity, we're spending them in the areas in which the voters have asked for us to do so. And I think you, and along with the rest of the staff and the manager, has done a good job of how we manage those projects and making sure that people are seeing the best bang for their bucks. And even in the process of issuing some of the bonds and how we've done debt, we've been able to even free up additional debt capacity to make sure we're even making sure that the dollars spent are going a longer distance. And so, again, thank the rest of the staff for that hard work, because I think those are some of the details that the public does not always see on the back end. They see the work that's happening, they see the construction going on, but they don't always see the large work that has to go in between time.
Yes, it was a priority that with this bond referendum that we complete these projects more expeditiously, so that the voters and those who will pay taxes to help pay for those bonds can see that we're committed to making those investments throughout the city. And so we've been very aggressive about trying to get those projects underway, and I think that where we stand now with probably over half the projects completed, I think we're in good shape, and I think people will be seeing more projects being completed here in the next year.
So we have $139 million approved by residents to move forward with projects. But on the other side of that, that's just a small portion of the large capital improvements that are needed in the city. Sometimes, there are questions about, well, we have this large number of unmet needs, and then we're only investing X amount of dollars. Can you help give us the simple economic and arithmetic reasons on how and why we approach it the way we do it?
Yes. So these are major. A lot of these projects, it's major maintenance. I mean, it's not just paint and making some minor repairs. It's really an investment to extend the life of the facilities. In some cases, it is making an investment to construct new facilities, and to try to fund those projects out of our operating budget would just really not be feasible. The dollar amounts would just be too large to really try to fund out of operations using current tax dollars or fees or what have you. So really, just as in the case of building a house, probably most of us can't build a house just and write an amount out of our checking account. So you finance it. You finance it over a period of time, that you feel like you want to use the house, and that's the way we finance these major capital projects, where we're issuing bonds that have a term of usually 20 years, and so it's to spread the cost of those projects over a length of time to where we can afford to pay the principal and interest, but it would just be difficult to pay 100% of the cost of the project out of the operating budget.
Right, and there are some things we do out of our annual budgets that go in to do maintenance and upkeep. But as you stated, those really large projects is very difficult to find the dollars within the budget to do that on an annual basis. And so we moved to the place of looking at the bonds to finance that work. And so we still have a great deal of other work that needs to be done, identified projects to work on. Stepping back to some of those projects that we do have in the East Ward, in particular, when we think about Union Station, and which has now recently gotten underway, and people can see folks over there on that project moving forward and really making a difference on that site. Could you tell us a little about how that project is working, how it's moving forward, and where it is?
So currently it is under construction, working on and renovating the interior to do the things that we plan to do there to not only house some of our Department of Transportation operations, but also to have some other uses in the building. Right now it's projected to be completed in November of 2018.
Yeah, and I think for many people understanding the Union Station project, that project has been one that's been on the table for longer than I've been on council, but probably about 10, 15 years in terms of people from an idea standpoint on how we can reinvest as a community into Union Station, transition into some type of multimodal center where we can envision rail future coming in, or light rail, some type of system connecting in that location. But today we see that work moving forward, the start of the vision coming to fruition, and of course, because of the way we are doing the project, it requires transportation use at the center of it. But we're still working as community to help bring in auxiliary functions that can be leveraged in the community as a whole. Before we transition, I can never say enough about the fact of how much, as you mentioned before, the need for investments in our streets and in our sidewalks. I think that's probably one of the things we get quite often, and even though many streets that individuals ride over may not even be within the jurisdiction of the city in terms of maintenance and upkeep, at the end of the day, they're close to individuals and they're going to call the city. But we do try to work very, very quickly to even report to state DOT when there are issues on state roads. But when you have snow, when you have plow trucks driving on those roads, and then if you have just within the core of the city older roads and even high traffic areas, you're going to see those roads deteriorate more quickly than in some other areas. And so that's an ongoing need that will continue to be. And as we do account for some of that in our annual budget in terms
Yes.
of how we do street resurfacings and work on sidewalks, because we know that's something that is a continual process, that as soon as we were to resurface every street in the city, there'll be some that next year will need to be resurfaced again, probably because of the high traffic and the impact of different elements on those. And so that's one that will be an ongoing process. And so and it's very necessary for citizens to engage, even when we think about street resurfacings and sidewalks. When there are issues there that the community sees, they call in to CityLink and others to let it be known, or the council person, so that if there's a patch needed, or if there's a sidewalk that has become in disarray, that we can begin to address those. And those kind of things don't always have to wait until there's a bond project that comes for a bond referendum. But within the budget, from an annual standpoint, there's opportunity to make those investments as well.
Yes, sir. We do allocate part of the state gasoline tax that we receive to do resurfacing every year. And then even every other year, when we are able to issue what are called 2/3 general obligation bonds, we infuse a little more money for street resurfacing. So absolutely, it is part of an annual program to maintain those streets that need attention.
Yeah, and so there, outside of the major areas we've talked about so far, and you mentioned in reference to parks and recreations, that from a citywide standpoint, we're investing a lot of dollars into our parks and recreation facilities. And I think by virtue of the fact that the citizens voted for it, there's something about making sure that we have quality recreation facilities within our community. We talk about a city that individuals have the opportunity to live, work, and play. Part of quality life is having efficient and sufficient recreation facilities in the community. And so part of this investment, not just in the East Ward but throughout the city, is to do just that, to try to make an investment in our park and recreation facilities that will have a direct impact on citizens, both young and old. And I think we're beginning to see that happen in many areas. In the East Ward, we've had several projects that are underway, several projects that will be underway with a large dollar amount attached to that. Can you talk a little bit about the dollars that are being invested in Parks and Recs in the East Ward?
Sure. So the bond referendum included $30.85 million in total for parks and recreation. And specifically for the East Ward, you have a combination of some major maintenance needs, as we mentioned earlier, that we needed to address, but also investment in new facilities. And so probably two of the larger projects is a master plan for Happy Hill Park that's currently under design, and hopefully we'll be going out to bid on that in the summertime. But a real major transformation of that park. Then in addition to that, at Winston Lake, you have a new Winston Lake Aquatics facility that's currently under construction. In my mind, really a very transformative project in terms of the facility that will be constructed there. A significant aquatic facility with all types of amenities. And then you have some real investments in the Winston Lake Golf Course, on-course restrooms, as well as renovations to our cart paths and our bunkers. Hopefully not to make them too difficult for those of us who have tried to stay out of the sand, but some real investments in the golf course there. Also investments in spray grounds. So as you mentioned, Councilmember Montgomery, really investments to improve the quality of life for the residents in the East Ward. And so some new facilities there that will, I think, provide them some opportunities to really, as you say, kind of enjoy themselves and take advantage of some amenities that maybe aren't there right now.
Yeah, and with this, we will have a very impactful opportunity on neighborhoods and communities when you make these kind of investments in parks and recreations, especially when in some areas where you're looking to expand the opportunities there, but then even just the upkeep there. When we look at some challenged neighborhoods and communities, park and recreation facilities oftentimes can become locations to help deal with some of the challenges that we have in communities, where we're offering and partnering with community groups and others to be able to provide services directly in those communities. And so our park and recreations facilities are often outside of our police department and our fire department are some of the most publicly seen parts of city government. And so we can make sure that we're making great investments there. It goes a long way for how we continue to build trust and community within city government and citizens throughout the community as a whole. But very, very excited about the economic impact that these projects are going to have on the community as a whole. And we'll talk a little bit more about the parks and recs and the work that's happening there as we continue to move on in the discussion. After the break, we'll come back with a look at the recreation and parks bond projects in the East Ward. Back in a moment.
Welcome back. This is the part of the show where we test your recycling knowledge. You have 15 seconds to answer 10 questions. Are you ready, Mike?
I'm ready.
Which of these can be recycled? Glass bottles?
Yes.
Garden hoses?
No.
Food cans?
Do.
Pizza boxes?
Don't.
Newspaper?
Can.
Clothes?
Can't.
Cardboard?
Should.
Plastic bags?
Shouldn't.
Magazines?
Blue card.
Styrofoam?
Brown card.
A perfect score! Are you cart smart? Some things just can't be recycled. Remember, only recyclables belong in the recycling cart. A message from the Winston-Salem Sanitation Division.
Put the brakes on, speeding in city work zones.
When you see our reflective vests, hard hats, and road signs,
Slow down,
When you see our crews working day and night,
stay alert.
with the addition of streets, sewer lines, and maintenance of existing property.
we work hard to make Winston-Salem a better place for everyone.
keep a safe distance.
Obey all traffic signs.
And slow down.
Protect yourself and others in city work zones.
Welcome back to the East Ward Update. I'm joined by William Royston, the city's Recreation and Parks Director. Glad to have you here with us, as we were just talking with Ben about the overall investment of bond projects in the community, and particularly the East Ward. We were rounding out the conversation as we were drilling down into parks and recreations, and it has to be an exciting time for you as director, as we are really transforming a lot of our parks and recreation facilities across the city. And as I mentioned to Ben, parks and recreations outside of police and fire, and even I'd say maybe even sanitation, I think probably Parks and Recs comes in as a very close fourth, or even I think tied in third, in the sense of the visual presence of city and the work that the city does in terms of through our parks and rec, because they're dispersed throughout the community. People often see them, whether they use parks and rec facilities or they are driving past them. That is very like a visual of what we do and how the city impacts their lives every day. And right now, we're seeing a tremendous amount of investment happening in our parks and recreation facilities. In the East Ward alone, we're looking at about a $12 million investment within parks and recreations, from Winston Lake Aquatic Center there at the park, Happy Hill renovations, Winston Lake Golf Course, Sedge Garden, Gymnasium and Spray Ground, and as well as Spray Ground at Rupert Bell Park. We'll talk a little bit about, as the director, and say, I still say new director, but you're not new to the city, but in the capacity, how you're feeling about the transformation that's happening in parks and recreations, and then we'll talk a little bit more so about these projects in the East Ward.
Thank you, council member, and it is an exciting time to be in recreation and to be a part of this entire process. I take great pride, and the staff takes great pride in a lot of the projects, a lot of the evolving that's happening in our recreation and parks department, from outdoor facilities, new indoor facilities, and trying to make sure that we have some of the most creative and unique play experiences for the people from Winston-Salem to enjoy. From the investment into spray grounds, renovations and upgrades in recreation centers, and looking at trying to just kind of change our appearance, be more inviting, and find out kind of what people enjoy doing, so we can continue to provide those services, and also look at what we aren't doing well and reach those people to see what we can offer to get them involved in our Recreation and Parks Department.
Yeah, and when we think about rec facilities, we think about any of our trails, we think about the opportunities to engage with community. Some of our, in particular, our rec centers offer very much communal space, and they provide a very important part of the fabric of neighborhoods and communities. In particular, when we are able to leverage, excuse me, when we're able to leverage not only the resources of city government and parks and recreation, but also leveraging what's happening in the community and how we can get that engagement from community organizations and their investment and how they're touching the lives of individuals, whether it's youth programs that are happening or whether it's engaging with our seniors or whether they're adult engagement opportunities for individuals. Parks and Rec has a great opportunity of investment, and so when we begin to talk about how Winston Lake Park is being transformed as we speak now into a destination, and I often talk about the fact that it's a jewel already in the community, and hopefully with these investments, one, the immediate area and community is going to benefit greatly from having this great jewel and its aquatic facility, but also in terms of hopefully it becomes a citywide and a regional attraction for individuals that they want to come to Winston Lake Park and they want to enjoy the amenities that are there. Can you talk a little bit about what your thoughts are at Winston Lake Park and how it's evolving and what you expect and how you see it developing in the future?
Well, we met years ago. This particular project started many years ago, but we met with, had several meetings with community leaders and where they expressed their need to or desire to have a pool in the East Ward. And we began looking at that planning, going through the planning process, and developed a vision that not only provided just a swimming pool, but looked at providing and creating an aquatic experience where we could create a regional destination. Parks in a lot of ways provide opportunities for the community to come out and engage with each other, begin to talk amongst each other. That's how we get families and mothers and fathers begin to have a common dialogue at our facilities. And so we looked at creating not just a swimming pool, but look at creating a total aquatic experience, one like no other that we have currently in the city of Winston-Salem. We're building a lazy river, a lap pool. There'll be a splash, like a splash pad for kids. We're looking at creating concessions where the city has recently partnered with the Carolina Thunderbirds to handle the concessions at many of our facilities. And that we're creating a very safe, a very unique, very positive, active atmosphere for people to be able to come out and enjoy themselves. And I think that we're going to achieve that. The construction is underway. I think that it's going to really transform, or be a part of that transformation of the neighborhood so that it's a regional draw. So we're bringing in people from other communities to come out and enjoy and see what the East Ward has to offer. That coupled with the work that's going on at the Winston Lake Golf Course, I think is really going to make a major impact and hopefully begin to be that heartbeat of the community like Winston Lake once was. Years ago, historically, Winston Lake was a place where a lot of people would come out to just meet and talk, and they would ride through and on the weekends, but you were able to see faces and people that you typically wouldn't normally see during the week, and we hope to begin to recreate that experience with the Winston Lake Aquatic Facility.
Definitely, and you mentioned in reference to Winston Lake Golf Course, that has been an additional investment, as said, investment in the cart paths, bathrooms there, out on the course itself, and that is coupled with additional investments that were made maybe about 2 or 3 years ago in terms of replacing the greens there in the golf course. Often hear from golfers, I am very, very much an amateur in the side of golfing, but hear from them that Winston Lake is probably one of the most difficult courses to play, but particular about what you just mentioned, and it speaks volumes about recreation and parks around the communal environment that is created there in terms of whether you're talking about folks who are golfing at Winston Lake Golf Course or those who are looking at using other facilities. Recreation Parks has the opportunity to help foster neighborhood, help foster community. And if there's ever a time, I think, in not just in our city, but across the country, we need more opportunity for fostering community. And one thing I think that we see even transitioning in recreation and parks, we talk about a pool facility at Winston Lake, and then we also will see a investment there at Happy Hill with the transformation of that park with the new vision and the pool site there and others that'll continue to develop and transition. But some other things that we're using in Parks and Recs are splash parks. Instead of doing full range pools, still giving that water feature and water amenity that so many people want to enjoy, but we're using splash parks to do that. Can you talk a little bit about, when people think about, well, I want a swimming pool, or say, well, I want a splash park, and how we meet in the middle to provide that?
Well, we've looked at creating splash parks or splash pads or outdoor spray areas that would operate independently of our swimming pools. We have 2 locations in the East Ward, one at Rupert Bell Park, which is currently under construction, and one which is soon to be under construction at Sedge Garden. And the benefit of having the outdoor splash pads is that we're able to turn these facilities on much sooner than we would typically turn on or open a swimming pool. So when we have the hot days in April, the hot days in early May, we have these facilities open for residents to use, where you're able to come out. You don't necessarily have to have on a bathing suit. There's absolutely no standing water at these facilities. It's a recirculating system where people can come out and cool off. We have what we call activation boilers, where you'll be able to go out and touch it, and the system will turn on for about approximately 15 minutes, and the water will cut itself off until someone reactivates it. But it gives the citizens and the residents a way to kind of go out and cool off, enjoy themselves without necessarily having to be under the supervision of lifeguards or having to walk into a swimming pool area and deal with it and have an opportunity to cool off in that manner. So it's a different type of experience. It's going to be a new experience, and I think it's going to be very, very beneficial to not only us as the Recreation and Parks Department, but also for the community as well, because we're creating new experiences, and we want to make sure that our facilities are that when you have these new experiences, that they're as safe as possible. They're fun. They're very unique. No two are designed alike. So that if you decide you want to go to every splash pad that we have in the city, you're gonna have a very different experience every time. But hopefully, that you'll have a fun experience and a safe experience at each and every one of them.
Yeah, and you mentioned as well as we look at Rupert Bell and then we look at Sedge Garden and the splash pads that'll be constructed there. But at Sedge Garden, there's been much more work being done there. There's an amazing building that's been constructed there. It's beautiful, both on the outside and the inside, in terms of gymnasium that's been added to that facility as well, which again extends the recreational engagement and opportunities to other parts of the community. The Sedge Garden Recreation Center is located in a part of the community that has not always been a part of the city, and so this part of the community that was annexed. And one thing that I know I have a commitment to and have shared with the residents in that area is that we want to make sure that individuals who have been brought into the city get the same benefits, same opportunities, engagement. And so this part of this investment continues to do that in that part of the city. And again, it continues to extend the services and the reach of parks and recreations there. Have gotten phone calls already with people ready to use the gym. I know they just got the CEO there, but it is going to be an amazing opportunity as we look at these facilities, how they develop. But again, going back to that point of how it has the opportunity to continue to foster community and bridge divides and gaps in community. And so I'm excited for you in terms of the great opportunities of developing programmatic approaches and partnerships in the community to touch lives. And I think you can't go far and talk to people who grew up in the community or from other communities, and they not be able to talk about some type of experiences that they had at parks and recreations throughout their life, where they were talking about going to the late night basketball games and seeing those, or whether or not there was a program going on that they participated in as a kid, or even now some of the great senior groups that use our parks and recreation facilities. Parks and Rec just provides a centralized place for engagement, healthy conversations, healthy movements, and in so many different ways. And so it is, I think, a great use of taxpayer dollars when we invest them wisely in this way. And I think that's why there was overwhelming support from the broader community to really make the investments in the way that we're doing in parks and recreations. If you had to give your greatest hope for parks and recreations, what would that be?
I truly believe that great cities are known for their great parks. I think that we have a tremendous opportunity to be not only one of the best recreation and parks departments in the state, but one of those that stand out in the country. And the way that we will be able to achieve that is providing making sure that I'm taking care of you. Not when you're at the playground, not when you're at our gyms, not when you're at the spray grounds, not when you're using our greenways and trails, but we begin to take care of you the moment that you cross onto our property. I want to make sure that you have the most positive and safest experience that you could possibly have at any of our facilities from that point on. Making sure that our parking lots aren't full of potholes, that parking spaces are clearly delineated. There's clear signage and directional signage to point you to where you want to go once you enter our facilities, and that you have very, very unique, very, very different play experience or social experiences as you enter and leave our parks. We have some of the most talented staff. I truly believe that we have some of the most talented staff working to provide these services for the city of Winston-Salem. We work very, very hard. We're going to work harder. We're going to be more visible. I've had several conversations with my staff where we're going to remove the walls, we're going to remove the ceiling, and we're going to give our staff the creative freedom, give our planners the creative freedom to develop some of the most unique and most wonderful park experiences and park elements: playgrounds, splash pads, gyms, tracks. One of the things that we're looking at we're currently talking about is looking at doing some artificial turf fields. We're one of the few cities in this area that don't have artificial turf fields, where there's a need for it. And there are partnerships that are there where we can work with the school system, we can work with the Y, we can work with these other church groups and begin to build those relationships so that that's what helps to define what the community really is. And I do not have any problem leading that effort. I want to lead that effort. We're going to have the greatest park recreation system in the country, and that is my goal. That is my staff's goal. Everybody that reports directly to me has had their marching orders. We removed the ceiling. We took the walls down. I'm going to give them the ability to fly. The only thing I've asked of them is to bring it back home. And people will begin to see the benefits of the hard work. You'll see the gyms, you'll see the splash pads. These aren't just our visions, these are the visions that the community has. We went out, we met with them, we heard what they wanted, we listened, and that's what's really key. You're gonna see that we listened, and not only did we take your concerns into consideration, but we took them and found the most creative way to implement them so that you can have the best experience that you can. A resident won't have to leave their home in the East Ward and drive to Tanglewood to use a lazy river. They're going to be able to go right up the street, not even a mile away in some instances, and be able to enjoy a facility that is just as good, if not better, than anything that they've had the opportunity to enjoy in the past. That coupled with the fact that with the work that's going on at Winston-Salem Golf Course, we're not only making improvements at a park at Winston Lake, we're making improvements to the community. Mm-hmm. And when you're able to couple those improvements along with a lot of the hard work that other city departments are putting in, we're really transforming the way that Winston-Salem, what people view as a great city, which is a city that I love here in Winston-Salem, but that we're at the forefront in leading the creative efforts to make our city one of the ones that stands out, not just here in the state, but across the country as a whole.
Definitely. Well, I think you have articulated very well, and I think it should be for not just those in the East Ward, but the entire city should be very hopeful for what we can expect from our parks and recreations under your leadership and under the great investments that are being made now, and even those that will be made within the future. And so truly appreciate the work you're doing, the work that the rest of your team is doing every day in our parks and recreation facilities, and the great service that they're providing to citizens as they engage with them on so many different settings throughout the city of Winston-Salem. It is a great task to do so, but I think that you and the rest of the team are up to it, and you all are doing an amazing job thus far as we continue to try to make sure that Winston-Salem truly is a place where everyone, everyone has the opportunity to live, work, and play.
Exactly.
So again, thank you.
Councilmember, thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for watching this episode of the East Ward Update. You can see this episode in its entirety on the city's YouTube page, Winston-Salem City Gov. I'm Councilmember Derwin Montgomery.